Welcome back, friends and enemies, to Brownlow Books. I am continuing my middle grade May with The Only Black Girls in Town by Brandy Colbert. Brandy normally writes young adult. This is her middle grade debut. It was published in March 2020. So, we follow Alberta, who is 12 years old, living in Ewing Beach with her dads. She likes to surf. She is the only black girl in her school. Edie moves in across the street when her mom buys the B&B that is there, and Alberta is, of course, thrilled that there's another black girl in town, hoping that, they're going to be friends. And basically, we follow that. There is a nice bit of mystery in this book as well, as they find a box full of someone's journals in Edie's attic, and they go on this little, who is it? Oh my god, reading all the journals, learning about things. Of course, meanwhile, the rest of life goes on, right? So this book very much involves a lot of exploring new and old friendships and how friendships can become toxic, and part of that is why I'm a little less on this book than I think I should be, but we'll keep going. We'll circle back. It also involves a lot of different, family kind of relationships. So, Edie, her mom and dad just got divorced. Her dad and her brother are in New York. Her and her mom moved out here and bought this B&B in Ewing Beach. Alberta lives there with her two dads. Her birth mother is pregnant and her husband has to travel for work. So she comes to stay with them in her, end months of pregnancy. Just so she's, not alone because, they're friends. And it's all different kinds of families, okay? We're covering that. We're also, having kind of the relationship between siblings, not just parents. So that's very forward in this book. I very love that as much. Love that as much. I love that too. This book is really well paced. I very much enjoy the pace of this. You could sit down, read through, and go, "Oh my god, did I just finish that book?" That's just how well the flow is. Of course, with the book being called The Only Black Girls in Town, we're going to talk about racism. But what I really love is that it is not the center of this book. Does it play a part? Yes, but in a really sort of subtle way. It's you're not, oh my god, crazy, when I read Blended and I was like, whoa, not like that. It's really subtle. It's more of clueless white people. Clueless white people who do things little microaggressions where you're just why'd you say that? For example, the first day of school, Alberta and Edie, because they live in the same neighborhood, go to school together. They walk in together because, new friends. And the principal or one of the teachers is like, "Oh, you guys must be cousins." And they're like, "What?" And so they call it out, which I appreciate. It's also got a bit of a past versus present racism. Because in the books, the journals they find in the attic, they are trying to figure out who it is and where they're from and what's happening, and it's just a little time capsule of what was happening back in the 50s? I think it was in the 50s. So, yes, it's a past versus present. It's a microaggressions. It's not something big and crazy and really triggering, What I do love about it is that, well, it's not the center. It is also very much with these girls, it's being black can be a lot of things. And these two girls are kind of they are who they are, and they're just sort of unapologetically allowed to be themselves. Their parents obviously have lived longer in this world as a black person, but they let them learn and grow on themselves. And so it's very interesting. No one's forcing them to be a certain way. They're just themselves. And these characters are so well fleshed out in this book. It is really lovely. For the circle back to toxic friendships, Alberta's best friend before Edie moved to town was Laramie, which is a horrible Utah white girl name, alright? Yeah, she starts hanging out with a girl that's always bullied Alberta named Nicolette, which is also a fucking horrid name. Sorry if these are your names, but like... So she starts hanging out with Nicolette, who also lives on the same street as Alberta, and just has always sort of bullied her, you know, rich white family, they have a nanny, like, it's a thing, and she just has always been quite rude to Alberta. And, you know, microaggressions, not quite so micro, I want to say, but, you know, they're kids, I guess. Anyways, Laramie starts hanging out with her, and Alberta's all like, WTF? And so where I find this book loses points for me is, spoilers, I guess, when Laramie and Nicolette's friendship falls apart, Alberta just sort of forgives her for, like, disappearing on her. Like, it's like, no, you took up with, like, a racist girl who bullies me. I would not be so forgiving. But Laramie just sort of gets a pass. So I kind of wish there had been a little bit more in the rekindling of their friendship to be like, yo, that's not cool. But, that's my biggest problem with it, to be honest, is how easily it's forgiven because they've been friends forever. I wish there was still a little bit more to that, because there are so many other things that go, like, just so perfectly that it's like, yes, this is how it feels so realistic, you know? And then to have that, you're just kind of like, oh, you're not gonna say anything about how she was hanging out with a racist. Okay. I guess. But yeah, it deals with a lot of things in, like, a really natural, nice kind of way. Like, the way Edie's parents split up and now, like, they're across the country from each other. And it's not just, like, her relationship with her dad. It's also her relationship with her brother. But it's also, like, having that relationship with her mom and seeing their mom deal with, you know, her dad. And just... So, it touches on, you know, divorce, you know, we've got queer representation, you know, how friendships are formed and how they can break. And you have a little bit of, like, crushes, you know, grade 7 crushes, like, it's not anything serious. And so, like, this book is just all around lovely. Like, if I was gonna rate it, I'd probably give it a 4.5, and that 0.5 being letting Laramie off easy. So yeah, as I said, Brandy Colbert usually writes young adult. Did I say that? Brandy Colbert usually writes young adult. This was her middle grade debut. I think I've got 2 or 3 of them behind me here somewhere. I am more inclined to pick them up sooner rather than later now because of how much I enjoyed this book. So, on Goodreads, it has just over 3,000 ratings, which I mean, it's 4 years old at this point. I understand the middle grade books usually have lower amounts of ratings because kids are not using Goodreads. But yeah, I do want it to be more. I mean, I'm an adult, I do not have children, and I really enjoyed this. Like, I think people sleep on middle grade books sometimes, thinking, oh, they're just like little fluff for kids, but like, there is stuff of substance and beauty out there, and I really enjoyed this one. It was a fun little read. Like I said, about just over 3,000 ratings. It has a 4.21. So, like, people are enjoying it. I tried to scroll to find a low review, and I could not find a review that was left for a 1. I found one from a 2-star review, and girl went off. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the mystery that we had thrown in there. I enjoyed the small beach town of it all. I mean, it was really cute and it was really fun and it was still dealing with things, you know? Like there's a lot going on in this book, but it is all handled wonderfully and with just the perfect depth to it. I recommend. I recommend. All right, thanks for hanging out. I will see you around next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe.